In this video, we'll talk about arrow function. So arrow function introduced in ES6, and nowadays many people love to write arrow function over the normal function. So the arrow function allow us to write shorter syntax. Like earlier we used to write function get name and return nikhil. So you can write directly get name and the arrow function and return nikhil. If you have direct return statement, you can ignore the return and you can directly return nikhil as well. But that was not the reason why arrow function got introduced. There was some benefit over the other function. It allow you to find the this value in the code context. So let's go to our VS Code and see first arrow function and then see what the problem he is solving. So in my code editor, first I'll create a normal function. How we create? We'll create ABC and that's print console.log hello, and to call the normal function I'll say calling ABC. So it prints hello in the console. Okay, now if I want to convert this normal function into the arrow function, we need to remove the function keyword, take the function name and convert into the variable, then take as it is this bracket, then put the arrow immediately, and whether you want to write this bracket or you can avoid it as well based on the use case, I'll tell you in a minute. And I'll say hello, and if I'm going to call this function, it will work as it is. See, hello is printing. So now the use case is like when to use curly bracket, when not to use the curly bracket. So suppose I have a, in the normal scenario, I have a function sum and I'm passing only one value like data, and inside the function I'm doing some manipulation before returning the data. So suppose I'm doing the data plus 10 and let sum equal to, and I'm returning then some variable. So whenever I'm doing some manipulation before the return statement, you have to use the curly bracket in arrow function. So if I convert this into an arrow function, it will be like const sum bracket, it receiving the data. You can ignore this bracket as well if you have only one parameter. Okay, and then write the same code that you are doing here and call it. And to see the data, we need to console this, and we need to pass some data as well. So I'll pass 4. So now 4 plus 10 is 14. So it's working fine. So now if I have two variables I'm passing, so then I need the curly bracket. I can say data 1, data 2, and then data 2, data 1 plus data 2 plus 10, and then I have to pass another value 5. So now it become 19. So whenever the two arguments are coming, you need to put under the bracket. So this is fine. Now you know whenever you have to do some manipulation before return, you have to use the curly bracket and the return statement. Now the another use case when we don't want to use the curly bracket, suppose I want to return directly like this. This operation I can return directly without storing into a variable. This will also work fine, but to reduce the syntax, what arrow function says, if you have only return statement within the bracket, you just avoid the return statement and the bracket. I'll consider the expression that you're returning as a return statement. So this is how different ways you can write the arrow function. We heavily use arrow function in the map operation. Suppose we saw in the array methods, we have suppose array 1 2 3 4, and now if I want to apply the map, simply write map arrow function in the form item. We take each item and return item multiply by 2, or instead of this I can reduce it further. I can say item multiply by 2 and store it in a variable because it's returning something new array, and will print that new array. It's returning the new array, that's doubling the number. So this is how you can write your arrow functions. Now this is all about syntax. Let's talk about the problem that arrow function is solving. Okay, so let's comment this out. I'll say problem solved by arrow function. I'll create an method. The method name, let's say, I'll create an object obj. Within this I'll create a property name Nikhil, and object can have value or properties as well as the method, and we call the method, the difference between the method and the function is when the object has a function we called it as a method. So I'll create a method get name, and I'll say it is a function, and within this function I'll say console.log. To access the property of an object within the method, we'll say this dot name, this point out to the object, and if I say console.log obj.getName method, it should print Nikhil. So it's printing Nikhil here, correct? So now here you don't need to console it because we are not returning anything, so it's all automatically printing it here. So it's printing Nikhil. Right, now the problem starts when the function become nesting. So let's create another function inside this. I'll say full name, and it will print console.log my full name is, and this dot name plus circle. Okay, and now I am calling this method within outside this function. So you have a method get name. It within this we are calling another function that is full name, right? So here you can see if I print one console.log this dot name, actually it's taking the data from the cache because we already mapped so many times Nikhil to a variable. So let's change this variable name to something else. I'll say it name1, and I'll change this to name1, name1, and name1. And now you see, because I guess that earlier the name property was already used, so it was stored in the cache. So I create an object with a property name1, and I'm trying to print that name1 inside a method. It's printing totally fine. When within that method I'll create another function, it's forgot who is this is pointing to which context, so it start printing undefined. And as soon as you print the full name, you call the full name method, it says my full name is undefined kakra. So the undefined, this lost its context. To solve this particular problem, they come up with a arrow function that always keep remembering the outer context of the this. So if I convert this function into a arrow function, so now you see it's remembering the name that is coming from top. So it says, okay, full name, you are pointing to this, so here this is the outer one. It's working fine. So to solve this particular problem, we come up with the arrow function. So let's go to the slides quickly. So we saw about arrow function, their different syntax, normal function without return statement, with return statement, and we saw the benefit of arrow function over the normal function. So till now we covered the 14 types of approach in JavaScript. Now we'll learn the 15th concept, that is set timeout and set interval. So I'll see you in the next video.